Hi. Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marie. Hello, everyone. My name is Neetha Naidu. I'm a long-term advisor at the Gtac, and we're super excited about the launch of our 5th Public Economics Winter School. And we have an exciting program lined up for you over the next 3 days. And we have defined 3 sub-themes for the winter school, and students and officials will be able to select a theme to attend. And the 3rd day will consist of several panel discussions as well as student debates. So those of you who have attended the winter school in the past will know that one of the highlights of the winter school has always been the student debates. So today we're actually is intended as a briefing for all of you who are involved in the winter school, including the judge and the adjudicators and the young economists who have been with Gtac throughout the winter school and who are now currently young economists who are working either at Treasury or at Gtac, or some of you who are still serving your internship. So we're absolutely delighted to have you as our debate facilitators for the highlight, which is going to be on Thursday. So I'm not going to talk through too much of the content because my colleague Marie will do that. So I just want to share with you that on this panel of the debating team, we have about just over 42 students from a cross-section of universities and tertiary educations, mainly postgraduate students, and it is a public economics winter school, so we've selected about 50% of you in the debating teams who are postgraduate economics students, and the remainder of you are from other disciplines such as law, health sciences, and others. So I'm also delighted to introduce the young economists from the graduate program, and they are Cassandra Dunstan, Maxwell Motlong, who is going to be joining us, but he's not available today, Liam James, Molokhadi Mojapelo, Sisipo Nkwani, Pia Marudu, and Julius Payne. So that's who's going to be your debate facilitators. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Marie Kirsten, who is the academic coordinator. And together, Marie and I have worked on the winter school for the past 5 years. So, Marie.
So a warm welcome, especially to the students that agreed to participate in this very important debate session. We always have this session live, so it is going to be a challenge, and that's why we have a preparation session this afternoon in order that everybody understands what their roles and responsibilities will be. So while we've booked a 2-hour session with you this afternoon, the first hour will be spent for us to just introduce you to the judge of the debate session, that is Professor Michael Sachs from WITS, and he will introduce to you the panel that will assist him in judging the debates on Thursday afternoon. We're also going to spend the first hour of this afternoon until 3 o'clock showing you 2 animated videos that we've had made to visually illustrate, firstly, the timeline of events and major figures and lockdown dates, etc. And also, Professor Tanya James has put together a wonderful 8-minute mind map, we call it. It is also an animated video about the impact of the pandemic. So all of that we are going to show you this afternoon. And I think the second hour, you will be just before around 3 o'clock, 10 past 3. Marley will guide you to a lounge area where you will be able to select your table with your question on after Michael Sachs has introduced the questions. So the second hour, we will have to start preparing for your debate. You will have, as Sanita indicated, you'll each get a debate facilitator. These people, the names that she's read, those are previous interns from Gtac, and they will assist you in the process. So all of that will become much clearer during the next hour. So I think before we go on, I would like you to, you can all see, if you click on the chat box, there is a little student poll. If you can click on that link and fill the three questions for us, and we will develop the responses just so that we can all see that we can contribute and click on the right things, and also to get to know each other a little bit better. So please click on that poll, fill the 3 questions, and we'll soon show you the results of the poll. So you click on chat box and then you will see the link. While you're busy with that, we are also going to show you the COVID-19 timeline now, while we process the results of the survey. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I think you're going to see that video many times. We're going to play it during breaks over the next few days during the winter school, and you can also find it on the app and on the website. Marie, are you ready to share the results of the questionnaires? Please let me know, otherwise Tanya can start.
Right, just another minute, please.
Okay. In the meantime, I can indicate to you that you will be able to find the latest or the final program both on your apps and on the website. And as you know, we start with the official program with over 400 delegates on tomorrow morning at 8:30. We have an absolutely fascinating program. We decided against having parallel sessions this year as we had in the past. So everybody will attend all the sessions, and it is particularly important for you guys. I think there's around 40 students that will partake in the debate to attend as many as possible of the sessions. Every afternoon after the last session, around 2 o'clock or 2:30, you will meet again in the same room that you'll meet this afternoon with your debate facilitator. So you'll have an hour this afternoon and then again an hour to 2 hours tomorrow, depends on your group, and again on Wednesday in order to prepare for the 2 o'clock Thursday debate sessions, which Michael will explain in more detail. And your debate facilitators will assist you this afternoon to understand how your short debates, 10 minutes per group, will be judged. So I think everything will become very clear. There's 3 very exciting questions that you will have to choose between and virtually select a table to meet the rest of your team. But all of that is very technical, and a little bit later I'm going to hand over to Marie after Michael Sachs has explained the questions. So Marie is presenting the results. This is the first question. Clearly Gauteng is the winner here. It's a typical word cloud. But I do see attendance from Limpopo, Maseru, North KwaZulu-Natal. Interesting result. So I think it's the Wits and Pretoria and UJ people that's making up.
All of them is in the lounge.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Pete. Okay, and the next question. So, yes, most of the students, as Sunita indicated, are postgrad students. I think 22 of the students are either honours, masters or PhD in economics. But then we have an interesting mix of other disciplines such as law and health and public management, financial, political science. So a nice mix. I do hope the groups mix also when they select a table. The disciplines mix. Okay, there we have interested, excited, anxious, all those feelings. As I indicated, in the second hour, you will be able to speak, chat, meet with the rest of your group, meet your facilitator, and everything will become much clearer. For now, I'm going to introduce Professor Ajam. Tanya Ajam is Associate Professor in Public Policy, Finance and Economics at Stellenbosch University. She holds a PhD in Public Management, and she's a member of President Ramaphosa's Economic Advisory Council, and she's a former non-executive director of the South African Reserve Bank. Tanya will introduce the next animated video. Thank you, Tanya.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be back at the winter school. I've also been involved with all of the winter schools except one when I was unfortunately ill. And we at the winter school, we've had to adapt. We've had to adapt to an online format, and I noticed that some of you are feeling anxious. I'm also feeling anxious. I'm feeling anxious about the technology.
Marie,
And so I'm really glad that at least the technology seems to be with us. Now, I think it's quite important that another intervention that we've introduced this year is that the winter school is multidisciplinary. So what this means is that we have economic students, but as you've seen from the word cloud, we also have students from other disciplines. And Dr. Marie Kirsten and I were discussing how can we make sure that everybody shares at least a common understanding of what the economic impacts are of the crisis. Because in the next 3 days, you are going to be unpacking how a public health emergency also morphed into an economic crisis. To do that, we've developed a mind map, which we'll be sharing with you. I think that Nicolene, Marley, and the creative team have done a great job of trying to put together this mind map to at least provide some sort of structure for all the information that you are going to be deluged with over the next 3 days. Especially for those of you who haven't done economics before, it's trying to just give you a feel for what the factors are and how they interact. So at this point, I'm going to ask Pitt and the team to just please play the mind map, and then afterwards we'll take some questions. Like the timeline, the mind map is something that you will see over and over again. So don't feel too alarmed if you don't catch everything, all the details in the first iteration. Just try and get a general sense. As we discuss it, as you get deeper into the material, you'll understand it better. So let me just hand over to the team and ask them to please just display the which started in South Africa around March 2020, was the first global outbreak since the Spanish flu in 1918. While it was, in the first instance, a public health emergency, it also had serious economic, social, political, legal, and governance consequences for South Africa and the world. The sheer scale, systemic nature, long duration, and extreme uncertainty of the pandemic's effects have been unprecedented in recent decades. We'll explore the underlying economic drivers and how they interact to transform a health crisis into an economic crisis, with devastating loss not only of livelihoods but of lives. South Africa felt both the direct and indirect international economic impacts of the pandemic early on. The direct international effects of the pandemic manifested as populations of various countries contracted the disease, placing huge pressure on health systems and reducing labor productivity. Regrettably, the global death toll has continued to mount. Companies' production of goods and services was reduced, undermining the cash flow, solvency, profitability, corporate savings and investment, and disrupting global value chains. As a result of illness and death, households lost income, sometimes temporarily and sometimes permanently, which in turn reduced household consumption and savings, depressing aggregate demand. The direct health consequences of the pandemic therefore created both supply and demand side shocks to economies around the world. There were also indirect international health effects, as health systems in some countries were overwhelmed. COVID-19 patients flooded health facilities, crowding out treatment of other illnesses and thereby creating other health impacts, often no less severe than the pandemic itself. People with other ailments also failed to seek medical care timeously because of fear of infection. Governments around the world nearly simultaneously adopted measures to promote hand-washing, sanitization, and social distancing measures such as lockdowns and restrictions on the flow of people and goods across and within national borders. These amplified the direct international demand-side and supply-side economic shocks of the pandemic. Exports and imports were reduced, which affected the prices of goods and services, the balance of trade of countries, and their inflation rates. Foreign direct investment was also undermined. The severity of the economic effects on different industries varied across different sectors. The financial sector, for instance, which could more easily respond with online operations and work-from-home arrangements, typically fared better than restaurants and the tourism industries. Purchasing masks, other personal protective equipment, and sanitization of public places resulted in additional costs to the fiscus, companies, and individual households. Governments responded with business support and employment support measures, which increased public sector expenditure, deficits, debt, while tax revenues plummeted. Social relief measures such as social grants and other forms of income replacement were implemented to compensate for widespread loss of life and livelihoods. As workers were put on short time or were retrenched, unemployment soared. In most countries, the unskilled workers with the least digital access and digital literacy and the informal sector were hardest hit, as were black and women-headed households. In this regard, South Africa was no exception. The social impacts of the pandemic included closure of schools, religious and cultural events, and NGOs deemed non-essential. International cooperation arrangements with other countries on the African continent and beyond were established to secure a coordinated approach to the production and distribution of vaccines such as COVAX, with complex geopolitical dynamics around powerful countries jostling to place their citizens first in the queue for vaccines. The successive waves and variants of the coronavirus saw rising numbers of South African COVID-19 infections and deaths rise, particularly among the elderly and those with comorbidities like diabetes. The vaccine rollout was delayed, and then the pace of implementation was disappointingly slow, especially in rural areas. South Africa's economy was battered by both the direct economic effects of the pandemic and the indirect economic effects associated with our lockdown, travel restrictions, curfews, and other measures to curb contagion. Widespread retrenchments in South Africa, loss of livelihoods in the formal and informal sectors, and business insolvency due to ill health and death impacted different economic sectors in varying degrees, and also macroeconomic aggregates such as GDP, economic growth rate, inflation, and the exchange rate. Sectors such as healthcare were particularly hard hit, as well as customer-facing industries such as retail or transport. While e-commerce such as online shopping, on the other hand, boomed. The incidence of infections and death differed across provinces and municipalities, creating spatially differentiated economic impacts depending on the mix of economic activities located in a particular area, with very different outcomes in rural and urban areas. South Africa too experienced the indirect health effects of COVID-19 cases crowding out treatments of other diseases or health promotion measures. Certain sectors were designated essential during lockdown and could continue to operate, such as food production, public and private security, and telecommunications, while others, such as tobacco and alcohol industries, could not. Imports of machinery equipment and other production inputs and exports were curtailed, interrupting the supply chains of various domestic industries. Discretionary income in South African households declined due to fewer working hours and increased retrenchments, which depressed domestic aggregate demand, consumption, and household savings. The pandemic and responses to it also had profound effects on poverty and inequality, on vulnerable groups such as the poor, children, youth, women, and the disabled. South Africa, one of the most unequal societies in the world, became even more so. The pandemic triggered greater collaboration between the public sector and the private sector, such as medical aids, and across the national, provincial, and local spheres of government, and innovations such as the Department of Health's COVID Alert app and the electronic vaccination data system self-registration portal. These are just a few of the complex interacting public health and economic drivers of the devastating economic effects of the coronavirus pandemic. During the Public Economics Winter School, we'll unpack these dilemmas in greater detail and focus on recovery strategies. Right, so I think that you'll agree with me that the animation team did just a stunning job in animating that mind map. And if you take nothing from the mind map, the one thing that should be clear to us all is that how the economics and the public health interact is very, very complicated. We will unpack each of these blocks in more detail over the next 3 days. But now I just want to ask, are there any questions on the mind map that come to mind? I don't see any hands, which is perfectly understandable because it's actually very dense in terms of content. So think about it. You'll see it over tea time. It will be played multiple times and you'll have a chance to assimilate it in a lot more detail. What it is a simplification of reality, a simple model with no math. So I don't want to scare off all the non-economists. But it does identify what some of the key factors are and how they interrelate. There was a statistician called George Box who said all models are wrong, but some of them are useful. And I hope that this will be a useful model for you as you learn and as you examine and interrogate these different concepts in more detail. You might want to change it. You might want to add different elements. You might want to de-emphasize other elements. That's perfectly fine. This mind map is just a guide to help you start thinking about these issues. And with that, I'm going to hand over back to Marie, who can take us into the next.
Thank you, Tanya, and thank you for your hard work on developing the idea and the text for the mind map. I would like to now introduce our judge on a Thursday. He is Professor Michael Sachs. Michael teaches public economics and fiscal policy to master students at Wits. Michael was DDG in the budget office in National Treasury for how many years, Michael?
Not that many.
But yes, he is now an asset to the winter school, being an academic and very much involved in research. So I'm introducing you to your judge. We'll have to get your cloak for Thursday. And Michael will share the questions as well as his panel with you. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Marie, and welcome to all of you. It's an exciting and interesting time.
We can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me. But
no, I can hear you. Yeah, Michael, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I was saying it's an exciting time, a difficult time, but difficult times are exciting times, I suppose. And the task I've been given is to be they call me a judge, but I think I'm more a facilitator or a coordinator of this process, of having a debate between between students on critical issues that we face as a country. I don't know, Marie, if we're going to put up the questions for the debate.
Yes, Marie, you can. While she's putting it up, you can carry on.
So I have a panel of people. So we're going to divide you into groups, or you're going to divide yourselves into groups depending on which question is of interest to you. And for each, there are 3 questions, and for each question there will be a group arguing for and a group arguing against. So the questions are there on. I can see them on my screen. First of all, should government introduce a basic income grant? You would have observed that following the unrest in the country during July, government moved to reintroduce a small grant that was given to work seekers essentially during the COVID lockdown of a grant of about 350 Rand a month. It's not very much, but it's clearly did make a massive impact on reducing hunger and reducing poverty during the COVID lockdowns. And the debate is alive now in the country. Should we, government has said that this grant is only there until March, but of course between now and March there will be this national debate which will ask, should we have a permanent basic income grant as part of our social system in South Africa? There are many good arguments in favor. There are arguments against, both from an economic development point of view and a fiscal point of view. And the question of fiscal sustainability is something that, of course, we are all very concerned with. Again, those who are interested in that question will go into that room, but you may go into that room and find the seats for those who wish to vote yes or argue yes are all taken, and then you're forced to join the camp that says no. Remember that the idea here is not so much to win the position that you personally agree with, but it's to develop your capacity to engage in reasoned argument that persuades people on the basis of reason and the use of evidence which one is right. So that's the first question. The second question is, vaccines should be made compulsory for all South Africans over the age of 18. I know, I have the advantage of having recently become old, and that goes together with the opportunity to get vaccinated. So I've had one vaccine shot. I'm looking forward to the next. But the thing about vaccinations is that they don't really work unless everyone does them. And it's a classic problem of public goods or externalities in economics, that how do we deal with a situation where the returns, the incentives for the individual to do something are not the same as the incentives for society as a whole? How do we deal with that problem? Do we leave people free to choose what to do, or should we force them to comply? And maybe compulsory is putting it very strongly, but I think you get the sense of the debate that how strong should government be? If people are resistant to doing this thing that is of benefit to the whole of society, how strong should government be in requiring and overruling individual freedom, in a sense, in order to achieve some collective benefit? The third question is similar in nature and relates to the lockdown regulations. Of course, as you know, these were very controversial. It led to directly, the decision to close down the economy led to a massive surge in unemployment. It led to rising hunger and poverty. Was this, given what we've seen since then, the extent to which COVID has wreaked havoc with health outcomes and the issues that were raised by Tanya in her mind map video, do we think that the government response in South Africa was the right response? Or do we think they didn't get the balance right? What did they overreach themselves as government in imposing this lockdown on society? And should they not have perhaps gone a bit easier? How do you strike the balance between livelihoods and lives in making these difficult decisions? Now, for none of these three questions, is there a simple, clear, obvious right answer? There's no right answer. These are all questions about people have fundamental differences. But what we hope to build in a democracy is an ability to deliberate rationally, using evidence, using reasoned argument, to argue the case in favor and against. And even if we don't win the argument, the hope is that we will all have learned something by the end of the discussion. So I, together with a panel, you guys will prepare your arguments for and against in slides. You will present them on Thursday. And then I, together with a panel, will be judging who presented the best argument. And now there are two kind of different ways in which you will be evaluated. On the first way is that when you present the argument for, and then another team presents the argument against, we will then ask everybody to vote and say who won the argument. So that's the first evaluation criteria. And if you win, you have the pride and joy of having been the winning argument according to the audience. But there's a second method of evaluation, and that is I and my panel, undemocratically, without audience participation, will be deciding amongst ourselves who amongst you made the most effective contribution to the discussion. And what we decide, if we decide that you are the winner, not only do you have pride and joy, but you will also have material benefits. And often this is the way things work in society, unfortunately, that democracy is all well and good, but the division, the allocation of material benefits is sometimes left to less democratic processes. So that's how we're going to operate this session. I want to just finish off by introducing my fellow panelists who will be helping me to make this decision. I'm not sure if they're here today, but I will just mention them in any case. The first is Andrew Donaldson. Like me, Andrew was a head of the budget office in National Treasury, but he has spent far longer in National Treasury than I. He joined in 1993, and he had many roles in National Treasury, mainly in the budgeting and public finance side. And before retiring from National Treasury a few years ago, he was the first founding director of Gtac, who is hosting this winter school. So Andrew has a wealth of experience in public policy and continues to be an important contributor and expert to public deliberation on these kind of debates. The second person is Boitumelo Mashilo. Boitumelo has a master's degree in economics from the University of Pretoria, and he's been in the public sector since 2007. His job now is that he leads the capital projects appraisal unit within Gtac. So whenever anyone comes to government and says, we want to build a spaceship, or we want to build a dam, or we want to build some big road or capital project, Boitumelo is the person that mobilizes a team to appraise and evaluate. Does this proposal make sense from an economic point of view? Does it make sense from a budget point of view? And feeds those recommendations into the budget process within government. So Boitumelo is also an acute observer of effective debating strategy that will help us make this judgment. And finally, the last person is Ronette Engela. And Ronette is the DDG Public Expenditure and Policy Analysis at Gtac. So she runs the program within Gtac that evaluates current policies of government to check how are they performing. Is government policy effective in achieving the outcomes that it seeks to address? And Ronette has as well a wealth and a very long track record of experience within government, both in Treasury, but prior to that in the presidency, in the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. And I'm sure you will see her as well during some of the sessions of the winter school, because she will be active in them. So myself, Ronette, Boitumelo, and Andrew. There will be another person who we're yet to meet from the DPME who will join us on Thursday. look forward to listening to your arguments and evaluating them. So I think that's all there is from me, unless Marie, I've missed anything. I think I've done my job well according to my own judgment.
Yes, Judge Sachs, you did. So you've indicated everything. I just want to re-emphasize that on Thursday, the group will be much bigger. We're inviting all the participants in the winter school, which is currently over 400, to attend the debate. So you will have a much larger audience. Also, your debate facilitators that you will meet at your table soon will share with you the voting rubric or the evaluation sheet that Michael and his panel will use to do the final judgment with. And Michael correctly indicated that after each of the questions, the for and the against, the audience will have a popular vote. But the judge and his panel will decide on the winning team out of the 6. And that team of the 6 teams, and that team will each receive a generous voucher. So now over to the exciting bit for all of you. I'm going to ask Marie Wassenaar is the owner of the Social Mix that's assisting us with this event. She will explain to you, because I still get lost on this forum, on this platform, and she will explain to you where to go. Can I hand over that to you, Marie?
Yes, thank you, Marie. Let me just give you a full screen here. So welcome, everybody. This is very exciting for us, everything that's happening over the next 4 days. I'm here to just give you a bit of an introduction of where you are and how you must make yourself comfortable. So I'm sure you all moved through the reception area. So I think the most important thing for everybody is to feel that you're in an actual building and in a actually attending a beautiful conference, and a very exciting conference. We know we can't be there in person, but let's try and make the most of it online. So in your reception area, you can find all the different directions of the places that you can go. In the sessions area, you can find all the schedules. This is where you will find where the program is, where you will be able to look up speakers, and you'll be able to join a session and also replay a session afterwards. The lounge area is really our cafe and our informal space where we can discuss and plan and debate. And this is also where you will be working a lot on your debates for your big presentations on Thursday. I'll show you more about that now. In the exhibition space, you'll be able to visit some organizations and institutions that are involved and learn more about what they do and see more about their products and be able to talk to some of their representatives. On the right-hand side is the social media tag, and also the different social media pages that you can visit. Please, if you can make a point of doing some tags and doing some tweets and getting the word out there. We are also building a social media wall, but we'll tell you more about that soon. This is the other place that you can enter. So when you're ready and you decide where you want to go, whether it's the sessions or the lounge or the exhibition, you can just click there. So at the moment you're in this student session. When you're going to go out of here, you'll see at the top all your options as again, all the different rooms that you can visit. We're going to the lounge from this point on forward. So in the lounge, we have set up 6 different tables for you for the 3 questions that you need to answer on. From table 10 to table 15, you will see a name as a reference to the questions that you have. You will see a thumbs up or a thumbs down sign, depending on which side of the question you need to answer. Please go to this table and decide on the table that you want to choose and join your facilitator there. So the facilitators can actually leave the room now. We just want them to be at the table so that they can receive you there when you get to the table. Please make sure you do not go to the other tables. Be aware, only table 10 to 15, make sure you are at the right one. We also want to create a balance between all the students, so we don't want everybody to sit around one table. Please try and see where there are still a lot of open spaces and seat yourself there. But it is first come, first served, so yes, you can just go there. From there on, yes, every day you can meet the rest of your team there, and if you have any questions, you can ask any one of us. But we hope you enjoy it, and yes, enjoy the ride.
Thank you, Marlies. So just to make double sure, the students will click on lounge to leave where they are now and to enter the area where the tables are situated.
That's right, yes.
Okay, so when you're in that area, you can choose a table, one of those 6 tables, by clicking on a chair. Once you've clicked on a chair, you're sitting at that table. We are currently looking at I think we're around 36 students, so no more than 6 students per chair. Otherwise, some groups will be per table. Otherwise, some groups will be too large. So with that, please put any questions in the chat box. And otherwise, your facilitators will meet you around your table. And we will leave you for now. Thank you again to Michael, to Tanya, to Sunita. Michael, all 3 your panelists that you introduced were in the audience. Welcome, and thank you for all of you, Renette, Andrew, and Boitamelo. So with that, let's meet in the lounge.